Recording in progress. I know it records me saying that. I just think it's yeah. Anyways, I'm going to explain to you guys what to do about this mini database portion of your project. Okay. Let me say first off, you are not going to be learning on your own on the side how to create a database. That is not expected, and it won't even be allowed for the grading portion. If you do the database thing on anything other than a regular JavaScript file, which I'll explain to you in a second, you can't get grades for that database that you created, okay? So hopefully you watch this video or go to the office hours so you can understand that, right? Anyways, so regarding this mini database thing, how do we program this? Okay, what's the point of it? Stuff like that. As I said before a second ago, number one, you literally do not have to worry about this database thing at all for a couple of weeks while you're programming, okay? It's only essential that by the end of your project, like submission of phase 2, it is here for this semester. Phase 2, the programming portion of the project, has to finish with the database thing, right? For part of the grades. But you literally don't have to worry about implementing it until like after you've finished programming the project, which sounds weird. What I'm trying to say is that you can program your whole application, finish it, have it working, and then add this database thing, okay? That's what I'm gonna explain right now. And I'm also going to have to bring this thing a little bit closer to me to do that. So I really hope this thing's recording my voice properly, because otherwise these videos are like useless. Okay, there's about 8% until this other video is done recording, so or done converting it as. I'm gonna honestly give me 1 second. It's kind of awkward. I'm like pausing this video right now to hear if the audio is being recorded because I can't see. Hello. I think it's working. Yeah, give me 1 second. So I can't swear. All right, shouldn't swear. That is hilarious. Okay. All right, let's get back to the video. How to program the database thing. What are we doing about it? Okay, so number one, as I was saying number one, let's not number things. As I was saying a second ago, you can fully program your project. Oh man. But you know what, guys, let me tell you something. One of the nicest things in life is when you start laughing at your own jokes, man, when you don't care. When you just start laughing at your own jokes. It's the best. All right. So as I said, you can finish programming your application. What is your application going to be? Your application, as you guys know already, oh my gosh, there's going to be a couple of different files. Okay, it's going to be an HTML. It's going to be a CSS, and a JavaScript file. Or, or a couple of these each. Like you can have a bunch of HTMLs, you can have a bunch of CSSs, you can have a bunch of JavaScript files. You're going to have these 3 types of files, okay? This one is going to, like, what does HTML do? It basically describes the structure of. I'm using the word describes. I'm just trying to communicate the idea of it. You program it, right? This should make sense. CSS describes the visual / look / appearance of the structure. Okay? / what page? Yeah, let's just use the word structure because yeah, / web page structure. Okay, there you go. And then JS will be the describes the functionality of. Let's just leave it there. Describes the functionality. That's what these 3 things do. Okay, you can finish. Sorry that I'm shaking the camera thing. I don't know. Whatever. It shouldn't be too visible. Okay, so these are what these 3 files do. And you can fully complete any project that any of you are doing with these 3 files. No database thing included necessary at all. Okay. So what's the point of this database thing? Well, we'll go over that in a second. Okay. So these 3, okay, is your project. And you can literally do these 3 and it will work fully, right? No problems. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because I want you, until you know how to do the database thing, I want you to work on these 3 files or these 3 types of files or whatever. Program the whole application without worrying about the database thing. When you learn how to do the database thing, the database will actually be another JavaScript file. It will be another JavaScript file. Let's just keep it consistent. It will be another JavaScript file. Now there's 2 types. I'm gonna give them a different. I'm gonna give them a differentiating title or whatnot, prefix, I guess in this case. Title, whatever. Okay. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call this one client side JavaScript. I could call it A JavaScript, and I could call this thing B JavaScript. Okay. It's just a title. It's just a word. Client side, server side. Yes, they're pretty keywords. They're important words to learn, but at the end of the day, these things are just titles that I'm giving it. Okay, that you guys are giving it. This is going to be the client side, and this is going to be the server side. That's an important thing to remember for computer science, period. But anyhow, these are basically the exact same type of file. That's what I'm trying to get across. Okay, client side and server side JavaScript, they are the same thing, nothing new, except for a couple of differences in the code itself. Okay, so our client side JavaScript still does describe the functionality. Okay, if I click a button, do this. If I click this, do something. Okay, that is on your client side JavaScript. On the server side JavaScript, what we want is we want to store data. Okay, so like arrays. I mean that's like a way to store data. You know, we can store things like login user/password info. You know, if you're doing a mini database on like sports, list of sports. Another thing you could throw on here is like user preferences, right? So if you on your website have a certain, somebody can click to change the design of the web page, maybe like the color scheme. Like you have 3 buttons, and if you click the first one, it makes the color scheme green and blue. If you click the second button, it makes it blue and red, right? Third button, yellow and green. Okay, these 3 buttons, the values of them, right, like blue, green, this, that, are going to be stored onto this side as well, and they're going to look something like maybe user preferences equals to. I'm going to explain this thing in a moment. User preferences is equal to like I don't even remember what colors I used, but it was like blue, red. I know I did not use purple, but I'm just going to use it here for a second. Yellow. And okay, so we got like 3 different sets of strings, and each string has actually a separation with a comma and a space. I should say a comma, because it's a list of things. So each of these strings is actually a list of things, but outside of the string themselves, there are commas as well. Therefore, this array actually has 3 different sets of values. So actually 3 values, really, 3 strings. My user preferences has 3 options. I'm going to explain all this stuff in a moment, but we're going to say the user preference is 0 is equal to blue, red. Okay, user preference is 2 is pink, blue. So what happens is when someone clicks up like that certain button, so let's say they click the second button on the page, right? 1, 2, 3, not 0, 1, 2. Let's say they click the second button on the page, and that should be what, purple, yellow in my program. So when they click on the HTML, that on the actual page itself, really the HTML structure, when they click button 2, so it should say like maybe purple yellow on it even. If they click that, my JavaScript here should run a certain function, right? Should run a function called change user preferences, for example, and then it should pass the value 2 or 1, because 1 will be the second index of something. It's up to you, right? You program this thing. But I want this program to, when that thing is clicked, I want it to run the function change user preference maybe. And I want it to run with value. I'm not sure if you guys have learned about this yet. Not a variable. Oh God, no, not during the video. I can't be thinking during the video like this. It's wasting time. 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna Google this guy. Word for variable. Parameter, man. Parameter. I'm not sure if you guys have learned about parameters here yet, but you can pass parameters into here, okay, based on the button that you clicked. Okay. Once you learn how to pass parameters, what we can do is we can pass the certain parameter we want into here, and it's going to, you know, when the function runs because the button was clicked, it's going to have that certain parameter attached to it. Maybe, right? Maybe each of the buttons run a completely different function, like change user preferences 1, change user preferences 2. Let me clarify. What I'm explaining right now is not specifically about the server side thing. I'm just explaining to you an example of the use of the sequence in how the server side is used. Okay. So from start, what happens is we have our web page. And on my web page, for some reason or whatever, we have 3 buttons somewhere there that if a user, if the person using the web page, or client side, interacting with the user, client side interacting with the client. If the client clicks one of these 3 buttons, they are preferences buttons. They will instantly change the color scheme of the whole application. When you click a button, one of them, it's going to run a function. All 3 of the buttons obviously run a function. So all 3 of them could run 3 different functions. It's up to you. Or they could all run the same function with a different parameter passed in. That's what I'm doing here. Okay, I do want to keep it a little bit more complicated to keep you thinking a little bit more. So you're going to learn about these lines of code later, what exactly I'm trying to show you. But the point is this function runs with a certain parameter based on the button clicked. Good. Now, these lines of code, which you will learn as the semester goes on, what they do is they basically say send to the parameter. Okay, the specific parameter as a message. I guess I could specify that. Set the server the parameter as a message. Okay, it's going to be a JSON message. You'll learn about that as it goes. It basically does this. And again, not again, but when I'm explaining this, you're not going to learn the specifics of these stuff. Okay, you're going to learn this as the course goes on. I'm trying to give you a good idea of how to think about it so that when you learn it, it's good. It's easy for you to implement. Okay, or easier. So this function, what it's going to do is it's going to send to the server. It's going to literally communicate with the JavaScript document. First thing it's going to do is it's going to pass the parameter as some kind of message. Okay. How does it really do this? Why is it connected? Let me explain that for a second. In your HTML, you guys have things like script. Things like a length, right? href. Okay. So you're going to be connecting your you're going to be connecting your CSS and 1 second. Yeah. Don't know why I'm tripping out about this right now. 1 second. I want to make sure that I don't give you guys a single piece of incorrect information, okay? So yeah, see, there we go. I was going to give you an incorrect piece of information right there. It's not a link. There's a link. Href, stuff like that, right? So you're linking your CSS. All right. Now, these two things connect the CSS and the script. Okay. So right here, this line connects us to this. Right? This line connects us to the CSS. I should have drawn these in different colors, but I think it is understandable. Okay. So these two lines connect us to the CSS and the JavaScript, right? They connect the HTML to the CSS. They connect the HTML to the JavaScript. Specifically, okay, explicitly, maybe I could say, the CSS is not connected to the JavaScript. They work together through the HTML. The HTML can implement both of those things and they work together. But we are not actually connecting the CSS and JavaScript together. Doesn't affect us in any kind of way, okay? But I'm just saying specifically, you connect HTML to CSS and HTML to JavaScript. The reason I'm explaining this is because these three are connected through the HTML. This JavaScript right here and the other one, so the client side and server side, are going to be connected to one another. Okay? The HTML and the CSS will not have access, direct access, to this. Okay? And these two, instead of talking through script SRC and link href and stuff like that, these are going to be connected through some process called node. Okay. Process of, okay, I'm saying process because there's a couple of steps. You got to install things, this and that. Okay. But the point is that these are connected through this thing called node. Instead of just a single line of code on one of them, like here, you know, being like, not like that. You're connecting through this thing called node. Node adds a little layer of security, we could say, in our project. Okay. Let me think about if I should explain that right now or later. Yeah, I'll explain it a little bit later. Now that we understand HTML connects to CSS, HTML connects to JavaScript, and we're just doing JavaScript to JavaScript for this server-side thing, I'll explain that in more detail in a minute. Let me just go on and finish explaining this thing. So change user preferences. I'm not going to repeat everything, but the point is the function runs with a certain parameter in my case. The first thing it does is it sends to the server this parameter specifically as a message through node. Okay. And the way it does it is it does it through that node through like some JSON string. Okay. So it is sent to the server. The next step in this whole process of step one. Yes. JS send server side JS message JSON. A message with the specific need. Okay. I'm like general like that. It sends to the server JavaScript a message with the specifics needed for this function to run. The reason we need to send such a specific message is because my data of blue, red, yellow, purple, all this stuff, the actual colors themselves, the RGBs or whatever, they're not stored on my client side. My client side has no idea what colors I actually can use, like what colors are available, what colors are to be used. It just knows that button 0, 1, or 1, 2, 3, however you want to call it. Okay, the first, second, or third button were clicked, and they stored certain variable values. You're going to take those values and you're going to pass them to the server side. Button 1, button 2, button 3. However you want to communicate it, it's up to you as the programmer. My server side actually contains the colors: blue, red, purple, yellow, pink, blue. Okay, you can even store these things as RGBs, whatever. Now, client side has sent to the server side JavaScript a message with the specifics needed. The next step in this process is actually the server side JS needs to receive it. It receives the message. Okay, and so I'm going to parse server side uses specifics I didn't explain that yet, but the point is, we receive the message. Somewhere in our code, somewhere here, we have some function. Okay? And what it does is it receives the message from the client side. Okay. I don't want to keep things, should I keep things like really, really, really consistent? I guess. Okay. So there's some function. Okay, I'm not going to detail how it's written. It's written a little bit differently, but the idea is there's some function. First thing you do is you receive the message, okay? Because we want to change receive the message from the client side. Now that we've received it, because that's its own step, we are now going to use that message to do what? So what we want to do here really is we want to, in this case specifically, I think I'm going to keep it to generals. Yeah. The specific thing we want to do is we want to pass the values here back to the client side. So if we've received 1, meaning button 1 was clicked, starting from 1, not 0, 1, 2. Button 1 on my web page has been clicked, meaning that the user wants blue-red as their background, okay? Or we're going to make it blue-red. So use that message that we want to do. What this means is, oh man, 1 second. I should extend this thing a little bit. Or, guys, I'm sorry. Some of you guys might need to get zoom in or glasses time or something. And what that is specifically in this case is, I want to make it nicely organized. If button 1 was clicked, or red, and we send it back. Wow. So what this means is that I'm explaining because I'll delete it afterwards. We're going to have some variable called like send back, and it is going to somehow using this received message, because we have the value 1 there, for example, or 0 or 1 or 2, whatever, however you programmed it. Send back is going to be equal to user references array value 0, 1, 2, or 3. If you did it 1 to 3 or 0 to, you're gonna need to end up getting 0, 1, 2 actually. But if you ended up receiving 3, for example, like third button, you're gonna have to back it up every time, right? So nice one. Or we can program it. Let's say we receive user preference is 0. The first button was clicked. They wanted blue-red. The send back is going to eventually end up being equal to user preference is 0. The reality is initialized, created, and eventually send back becomes equal to this. Okay, that's what happens right here. Okay, user preferences become send back becomes user preferences 0. Let's keep that there for a minute. I'll change this text to the code. It's clear. Undo. Nope. No. The zoom, man. The zoom, man. I lost the whole text, guys. Anyways, man, it's written from a certain way from the client side. That's a good opportunity, actually. Everything happens for a reason. Function use changes your preferences. This is the function on the server side JavaScript. It's written the same way client side is written. So it's the same way that you guys have learned how to write JavaScript. It's written the same way. As you can see, I literally have an array on this server side. It's all the same, except for a couple of additional lines of code. That's why you can program your whole project. Okay, you can program the whole thing, and then at the end you can start doing the server side thing and literally copy paste like certain arrays and stuff like that, and then add in a couple of lines of code for each of these to make the whole thing run with the server side. Rewatch the video right there if that didn't make sense for a second, because I did actually explain well. So this function, what happens is it's going to receive from client side JavaScript. It's going to do something with this message. Message from content message. Do something with this message. Yeah. Do something with this message. This meaning in this specific case, change the send back variable, for example, to user preferences 0, perhaps. Case. Do something with it. Do something. Right, because we might receive the value 0, 1, 2. We want to do something with a specific value. 3, our thing is going to be send back to right here. First, I do something specific. In fact, let's specific message. We're doing this right here and editing it to show that it's actually the same thing. You're communicating between the two JavaScript files, and that's all this stuff does. It is simply communication. In fact, message to client. In fact, let's keep that. Yes, client side yes, a specific message. This is the same length text as this one right here. It is the exact same length. It's the exact same message. We do the same things, just vice versa. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera thing a lot. Okay. Now, I'm going to reiterate everything afterwards, okay? Send client-side JavaScript a specific message. Right here, what's the next step? Well, if we sent, now we need to receive message from the server. Yeah, so now that we've received the message, something specific. Let's copy this. Copy paste. You'll see something interesting here, which is that these things are literally the same thing. It's the same lines I'm writing here between these two. Between the client side and JavaScript, client side and server side, a lot of the things are copy pasted. I'm going to reiterate everything in a moment, and it'll make sense why it's so copy pasted and similar and all that stuff. Now, the next thing we do here, as I said, is we do something based on the message received from the server. Something could mean, in this case, for example, change color scheme of page, right? Literally. And what that could mean is like run function, change date with their parameters. You know, they honestly write that. It could literally, this could literally be the line of code, something like that. Right here, this third thing you do could literally be one line of code, which is just a function running, a sub function, whatever, right? Like change page, and change page down here when it gets past this one parameter. Right, because the values of colors were stored here. So blue red, for example, is going to end up being sent. Blue red is going to end up being sent right here into change page. Okay, somehow you guys will figure that out as you learn programming, as you learn how to program all this stuff. And if you have questions about this, technical questions, email me, right? We will figure that out. But you run a function, for example, like change page with the specific parameters of the values of colors. So blue red here, for example. And that's it. That's you know, I could detail about the change page here, but that's not what I'm trying to explain to you. But I could do like function page. You know, I can explain to you guys what to do there, but that's not the point. But I'm trying to explain to you here. This is where the iteration. Okay, I'm going to reiterate everything, explain it all briefly, more briefly, concisely, and stuff like that. Now that we understand the big picture, the small details, actually, we'll now explain it in macro. Reiterate. Okay. What I was trying to explain to you here was what is the point of server side? What's the point of a server side? The point is to store data on another JavaScript file that is less easily accessible than just this. For example, like that's an example of a reason. Really, we're just using it to store data. We're using a server side to store data. We could have literally had everything on this client side JavaScript. This thing was not necessary. But what we did was perhaps, we finished the whole project, and then we created a new file called server-side JavaScript, completely blank. We copy pasted a bunch of data, right? Like colors, all this stuff. All the data that we could just use for, for storing somewhere else. We just copy pasted it literally onto here. Then we copy pasted some functions onto here actually as well. Some, not this one. This one's actually specifically for communication, okay? And then what we did, now that we had literally the same code of the whole project, copy pasted into 2 different files, some of the code is not accessible anymore because all we've done is copy pasted into another JavaScript file that is not connected to the HTML. Make sense? Then what we have to do, now that everything's copy pasted, is we have to add some new functions, okay, some new lines of code, which work with communicating between 2 JavaScript files through Node. So finish the whole project, copy paste some of the data into another JavaScript. That new JavaScript literally doesn't work at all for the project. Your project's broken for a bit. Now what you need to do is you need to connect your original JavaScript file, the client side, to the new JavaScript file, the server side. You need to connect to them through Node, which is, you have to like install something, download, blah, blah, blah. You have to get this Node thing working. And then you need to write a couple of lines of code in each of these JavaScript files, allow them to help them communicate between each other. And the messages or the lines of code that are new are literally the same in both files. And this is what I'll explain. The messages are because they're not really specifically ordered. It's basically send something to other file. Send something to other file. Sure. Send something to opposing file. Opposing. Yeah, sure. Okay. Give me 1 second. I want to make this actually like clean. Send something to opposing file. Opposing. Partner file. Okay. Nice. Check this out. Boom. Boom. Okay. You know what? I could add. Yeah, this works. This is bi-directional. Okay. Goes both ways. Okay, we're good. Client to server or server to client. There you go. So send something to partner file. I'm not going to detail client to server thing again. Not really necessary here. And it also helps you understand that I mean with the big partner file in that above way. Now C is something with the receive. Specific changes on a specific, state or whatever, like could be in. You send a specific message, change the page to, button 1 is clicked. Change the page based on what button 1 is clicked. Receive is like, okay, here's the message, and the whole message literally details what button was clicked. Button 1 was clicked, and it wants me to change the page. It wants me to send back. Oh yeah, it wants me to change the page. It wants to change the page, and we received the button 1 is clicked, for example, here. Now, do something is the do something of it. So on this thing, the do something is change that one variable called send back, right? Send back, change it to user preferences 0 or user preferences 1 or user preferences 2. That's the do something here. Step 3 here, by the way, was send back. So send back the message, and the message contains like this variable called send back. So you're sending back a message that contains that variable send back, and send back that variable was modified in this step to be either user preferences 0, user preferences 1, user preferences 2. Okay? Or. All right? So do something. And then what's the do something of here? The do something of here is literally just change the page's colors. Right? Now that we have the literal values of what colors to use, we can now use those colors to actually change the page. So I want to show you one interesting thing here. These three both, they all have ABC here, okay? I'm going to add one more piece of text right here. It's going to be a mix of these two right here, okay? We have, on the left, we have this thing. Okay, on the right, we have this thing, like the list or whatever details. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically reorganize actually this one right here on the right side. Okay, so client side and okay. So this specific product, what it does is it's one, if you have a number, step one, to a server, step two, receive server message. Right? I know I look like I'm really like literally just wasting time. First side, receive on client message. Here's something. Okay, so these are the three things that happen on both sides. These are the three new lines of code that you pretty much do. In reality, it's actually only two lines. It's receive and send. The do something is just a normal function that you know how to write. Okay, so you have to copy paste code and also you'll see mix and match and stuff. So these are the three things on each side. Now, if we did not have a server side on our project, we can literally delete some of these lines of details right here, and you will see it. It's literally just like one single JavaScript file. Send the client message. If I did not have a server side, I would not need to send anything. If I did not have a server side, I would not need to send anything. I'll delete server side the word. If I did not have a server side, I would not have to send or receive anything here. So we have do something and do something, and there's just a client side. Okay, there's just a client side, and we're doing something. There's two steps here. This one was the specific of something here was find the array specific colors. Right? So 0, 1, 4. Right? This was to do something on the server side. Right? So find the array index containing specific colors. Do something here was change it based on the value of based on the array index of specific color to be used. So in other words, I can just say change color based on user preference array value. Right? Change page color based on user preferences array value. User preferences array value was right here, and it's actually, if you can recall, it is literally done before here. But there's one thing here which is kind of missing, which is that you actually have to grab those values, grab the value from client. Grab the value from client is really like if a button is clicked, store that certain thing into a variable, right? Like if button 1 is clicked, store the value 0 into a variable. Okay, that initial value of what is clicked or interacted with is important because that is the document.getElement by ID, yada, yada, yada. Okay, document.getElement by ID. Okay, you're going to be grabbing a specific value of something. You're going to be storing it into a variable, or you don't have to really store it into a variable. You can just use it directly. But you could store it into a variable, and that variable is, it's required to do this because I can't find the array index of the specific color if I literally do not have the 0, 1, or 2. You know what I'm trying to say? Like if someone clicks button 1, I should know that I'm looking for index 0, and as a programmer, I made it so when they click button 1 in my JavaScript right here, we understand that as 0, as literally just the value 0. So that then when I'm trying to find the array index value of the specific color to be used, I actually have a number to be used here. Do you know what I'm trying to say? 0, 1, 2? Why am I saying do you know as if like this is live tutoring? 0, 1, 2 here are based on the button that is clicked, so that button needs to literally be clicked first. So
this happens first, then this happens. And in reality, what they both need is the simple stuff that I didn't detail anywhere, which is document.get element by whatever you want, okay? To grab the value user communicates. They didn't know they were communicating it, okay? When they click button 1, that 0 gets communicated to our JavaScript file, but you as the programmer make them communicate that, okay? That makes sense? So you make them communicate that certain thing, then it gets used here, and then you do something. And look at this, I literally deleted things. I basically deleted things from this list, and we came out with the same sequence of things that is happening. So what I'm trying to make there as a point is that client side, server side, in this case for you guys, what you can do is you can fully finish programming your project without a server side. You can add the server side at the very end, and it's a blank file, and then you just copy paste some things from here into here, and you add a couple of new lines to allow for communication, and that's it. It is your original project with some new lines for communication between these two files where you've split your code now. Okay, that's what I'm trying to explain with this. The same things happen. I've just deleted the receive and send parts. Pretty interesting, right? Anyhow, that's what the server side is, guys. I think this video should have explained everything. I hope you can still hear me. 1 second. Okay, let me set up in a second. Let me think about if I'm missing something, because this is just comfortable now. Okay, let me not get too comfortable. So I explained the server side, okay? What it does, the specifics of how you're going to program your website, like how to do a login page, stuff like that. I will explain specifically to each team when they come during the phases, okay? During a meeting or whatever, or on email, okay? Like a login page, you can see how client side, server side work, but a login page itself, the logic of it, you might not know how to do, okay? How to actually use logins, how to use username passwords, how to store username passwords here and actually use those to log in. You might not know how to do that, okay? The specific logic for each of your guys' unique projects. We will talk about that more personally through email or the meetings, okay? Because I do want to end this video on a general note. Yeah, so in terms of like a login, I'll make a new video on that or something, but this should be everything. Let's actually, you know what, now we're going to reiterate everything very briefly, okay? You can tell by the length of the video, hopefully, that it's only a 2-minute reiteration, max. So, what have we done in this video? We've explained what the point of a server side is, okay? It's kind of for, I didn't even get there actually. You can use it for a security thing because it's not really accessible directly by the HTML. I'll explain that actually right now. The reason is a security thing, let me explain very briefly, is because if I have my website here, let's say I have a username, a login, and username and password, and a check mark, like login button, okay? Where I enter my username to be entered. I don't think to be is really password to be entered. You enter your stuff here as inputs, right? If you guys go on any browser and you right click your page and you click like inspect element or view page source, all right? Let's say view page source more specifically here, you will see your whole HTML document. You might need to do a different thing other than right click your page. You might need to go like developer tools, this and that. When you go to viewing page source of a website, you can see its HTML, okay? If you can see its HTML, you can see in the head section, let's write it actually out. So this will be the HTML doc that is visible when I click view page source or whatever. So we have our thing here, we have our head section, we have our body section. You can end the video here, by the way, if you don't need to understand the reason for it, but I mean, that's kind of, whatever. All right, maybe shouldn't have even stated that. It's not really making sense. Okay, so we have our body section, we have our head section. If I press enter or back, it does nothing, by the way. Regardless, it ends up being read as if it's all on, it can just be on all on one line. But anyways, for the sake of organization, I'm going to split these things up a little bit, okay? We have our head section, our body section, and the HTML. It's like enveloping all of them because it's HTML documents. Everything between these things is the HTML, right? Now, if you click view source, you can see all of this. Meaning that in your head section, you will be able to see script, src, yada yada. Meaning that you can click the script file here linked, and it will literally open up and show you what the JavaScript document looks like for this page. Is that a problem? Well, for your project, if you have sensitive data like variable usernames and variable passwords, or however you ended up storing username and passwords, these arrays will be visible, meaning that if someone views the JavaScript document by clicking it, they can see all usernames and passwords, and they can literally just type them in and log in, right? That's not good. No bueno. All right. Some people would say no bueno. Some people would not say. A lot of people would not say mucho gusto. I don't think anybody would ever say mucho gusto. I think it means very thick. I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, you can see everyone's using password. That's not good. So we don't want this to be here, right? And as I explained before, right here, let's go back. The HTML connects to the client-side JavaScript. The server-side JavaScript containing username and passwords is only connected to the JavaScript file. That is not visible by clicking the JavaScript file here. If I click the client-side JavaScript, the server-side JavaScript is actually not detailed anywhere here. The communication is detailed. The actual server-side JavaScript is somewhere else on my computer, okay? And it is just communicated through my computer with this node thing. So you'd have to like, figure out how to utilize Node if you want to like hack into this database to access that information, which is more effort, right? But long story short, you cannot so easily see everyone's username and passwords or any sensitive data, functions, whatever that you want inaccessible. You place those things onto the server side because they are not as easily findable. All right. That is one of the uses of this server side thing. Okay. Now, with that use out the way, what did we talk about in this video? Now I'll be able to reiterate everything. We talked about the uses of server side. We talked about how to do the server side, kind of. We talked about what it does, right? So how to do it, meaning, these 3 steps, kind of, a little bit, right, briefly. When you learn about it more specifically, this will make more sense. What to use it for, right? Like here, we're storing certain pieces of data. And how do we use those pieces of data, right? This right here literally uses an array that is available on the JavaScript document within the communication. So within the communicating steps, we're doing something that uses a specific array available on the server side. So how do we use the communication, right? How do we use the server side? What are the uses and what are the steps which those lines of code go through? What are the steps that basically like from client clicking a button to client seeing the result on their page? What are the steps from client side to server side and back? All right, that's what we also talked about. I also explained to you that you can literally fully program your whole project and then care about making your server side and just copy paste things. You should be doing that, okay? Yeah, so your server side should be a JavaScript file, not some other database type of thing that you learned outside. You will learn this as the semester goes on, okay? The specific files here, the lines. If you have any questions about the specifics of how to program the logic for your specific project, like a login, let me know, and I will definitely explain to you how it works, all right? I hope this video was understandable, educational, and maybe even fun to look at, because I had some fun making it. Not really, that doesn't make sense as a cuz, but anyways, yeah. Hope it was good. If you guys have any questions, email me. That's it. All right. I want to make sure I didn't forget anything. Give me a second. I wanted to clap a little bit in the video. I didn't want to think. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, email me. Okay. Bye-bye. Ciao. Oh, stop share, and now I gotta stop recording. Okay.